As we know, people on the internet feel a deep need to constantly be outraged about things. There's a certain amount of outrage, a certain quantity of outrage that's required to satiate this need. As people, develop outrage tolerance, though, they'll find that they need more and more outrage to get their fix. Now, this shouldn't be a problem. There's no shortage of outrageous things happening in the world all the time. You could no more run out of outrage than you can run out of sand on the beach. But what happens, the problem is what happens when the people who most need to feel outrage have also, for political reasons, committed themselves to being not outraged about the most outrageous things. What happens when someone deeply needs to be outraged, but their ideology precludes them from being outraged about, for example, the murder of babies and the genital mutilation of children? Well, this is like looking for sand, and you live right next to a beach, but you need to find sand everywhere but the beach and even sandboxes. Now you've just made what should be the easiest thing incredibly difficult. And that's why in the age of cancel culture, people are forced to go back in time to find things to satiate their outraged desires. They got to go back in a time machine, like Back to the Future, to find something to be pissed off about. Every day there's another video from years ago that people are randomly upset about for no reason, other than the fact that they need to feel upset about something. And this week, that video, or one of them, that fills the need is this. It's an interview with Steve Harvey from, I don't know when, several years ago, I think like 10 years ago. And in it, he gives his opinion about whether men and women can be friends, platonic friends. He says no, and people are upset. So let's listen first to the, as they say, resurfaced clip.
All of my friends are men. I don't have female friends. I don't. I'm incapable of that.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, because, come on.
Because you have a wife.
Well, I have a wife, and I don't really have female friends because, look, okay, let's get rid of this myth right here. Okay, I'm going to tell you this. Let's get rid of this right here. You're an attractive woman. There's some guy somewhere saying, yeah, we're friends. No, that's not true. He's your friend only because you have made it absolutely clear that nothing else is happening except this friendship we have. We remain your friends in hopes that one day there'll be a crack in the door, a chink in the armor. And trust and believe that guy that you think is just your buddy, he will slide in that crack the moment he gets the opportunity.
Because
we're
most
guys.
Men think this way?
99.9% of us think that way.
Very upsetting stuff there. People were upset about it. Also, correct, of course. It's obviously true that men and women can't really be platonic friends. There are exceptions, of course. There are exceptions to most general principles. Okay, but it's impossible to talk about anything if we're not able to make reasonable generalizations. And that's why we can't talk about anything, because people are always obsessed with the exceptions. That's another one of the pedantic things people do online that annoys me. You're talking about general principles, and someone always says, no, I'm aware of an exception. I personally am aware, anecdotally, of an exception. Let me tell you all about the exception I know about. No, this is a reasonable generalization, and it's true. Men and women can't be friends. That doesn't mean they can't work together. It doesn't mean they can't function around each other. It just means that they can't be buds. They can't be pals in the same way that men can be pals with each other or women with each other. Now, when talking about this subject, the first thing we have to say is, and don't take this the wrong way, ladies, but your opinion doesn't count, okay? Your opinion doesn't matter here. It doesn't matter what you say. And I'll tell you why. I know that a lot of you think men and women can be friends, but it takes two to tango. And sadly, men, much of the time, have an entirely different dance in mind. As for men who claim that they have many dear friends who are women, some of those guys are gay and the rest are lying. Don't shoot the messenger here. This is just the truth. Now, if you're the sort of person who needs a study to confirm your own common sense, well, luckily we have those. According to an article in the Scientific American, researchers recently conducted an experiment to find out how males and females in a, quote, friendship actually felt about each other. So here's how that went. Reading out, it says, in order to investigate the viability of truly platonic opposite-sex friendships, a topic that has been explored more on the silver screen than in science labs, researchers brought 88 pairs of undergraduate opposite-sex friends into a science lab. In order to ensure honest responses, the researchers not only followed standard protocols regarding anonymity and confidentiality, but also required both friends to agree, verbally and in front of each other, to refrain from discussing the study even after they had left the testing facility. These friendship pairs were then separated, and each member of each pair was asked a series of questions relating to his or her romantic feelings or lack thereof toward the friend with whom they were taking the study. The results suggest large gender differences in how men and women experience opposite-sex friendships. Men were much more attracted to their female friends than vice versa. Men were also more likely than women to think that their opposite-sex friends were attracted to them, a clearly misguided belief. In fact, men's estimates of how attractive they were to their female friends had virtually nothing to do with how these women actually felt, and almost everything to do with how the men themselves felt. Basically, males assumed that any romantic attraction they experienced was mutual and were blind to the actual level of romantic interest felt by their female friends. Women, too, were blind to the mindsets of their opposite-sex friends. Because females generally were not attracted to their male friends, they assumed that this lack of attraction was mutual. As a result, men consistently overestimated the level of attraction felt by their female friends, and women consistently underestimated the level of attraction felt by their male friends. What a shock. And by that I mean not a shock at all. Common sense wins again. This is so thoroughly confirmed by common sense and the nearly universal experience of all mankind that it isn't interesting to talk about whether or not it's true. It simply is. What is more interesting to talk about is why it's true. And the reason for that is also a matter of common sense, though perhaps not so common anymore. It's this. Men and women are different. Men and women, no matter what they might say for political and ideological purposes, all basically know that they're different. They see each other as different, and they see each other differently. You know, heterosexual men are perfectly capable of bonding with women, but their desire is to bond in a different sort of way. And I don't just mean sexually. A man's attraction to women is hopefully not merely sexual. His desire for companionship with a woman has a prominent sexual element, of course, but there's more to it than that. Yet it all tends towards eros, towards romantic love. One of the problems I think we have in society is that we only have one word for love, rather than in other languages like Greek where they have multiple words for different kinds of love. A man's affection for a woman is going to be different in kind from the feeling that he has about his male friends. He's going to want something different out of the relationship. That's not his fault. It's not a flaw or a weakness. It's perfectly natural. He's a man, and as a man, he relates to women in a certain way. Now, notice something. Women who think they have male friends will often say that what they'll say is, I'm just one of the guys. And they'll brag about how they can throw down beers and spit and cuss with the best of them, right? Most of the time, that's a lot of silly nonsense. But even if it's true, you see how a woman who wants to be just friends with a guy will have to try to imitate the relationship between two men. She'll have to try to blend in with the guys. She'll have to try and fit herself into the category of a male-male friendship, basically become a man by default for the purposes of the friendship. Why is that? Well, it's because there is no authentic category of a close male-female heterosexual platonic friendship. That category doesn't really exist. The ones that work, if they work at all, work because the woman is basically pretending to be a guy and is seen as a guy by the other guys. But usually from the guy's perspective, if they want to hang out with guys, they'd rather the guys be actual guys. So if a guy is letting a woman into that fold, if he is putting up with that charade, it is usually for a reason. And it's not the reason that the woman has in mind. Now, the male-female friendships that really work are the ones that are mediated and contained and centered around some other larger thing. Men and women can get along at work, even be friends in the context of work. Married couples can be friends with other married couples. In these contexts, the friendship can function and remain just a friendship. But they can't be close friends just with each other without that mediation and context. Married couples can be friends. But if the husband from one couple starts hanging out alone with the wife from the other couple, problems arise. As a wife, if your husband is out late having some beers with his guy friend, you might be annoyed that he's out late, but it's not going to be a crisis in your marriage. If you find out that he's out late having some drinks with a female friend, quote unquote, there are going to be sirens blaring and red flags waving all over the place. In fact, even if he didn't have any kind of physical or sexual contact with that woman at all, you're probably already going to feel cheated on because he should not be having that kind of intimate companionship with a woman who is not you. Guys have a need for female companionship, but it's a different kind of companionship. And so his need for female companionship is supposed to be filled by you, He shouldn't need more close female companionship. If he does, that's a major problem. And almost every wife on the planet sees it that way. Even if for whatever reason they would disagree with Steve Harvey on the point he made. There's no need to talk about whether things should be this way. Things just simply are this way. Men and women are different. They relate to each other differently. They bond differently. And that's fine. The reality only becomes a problem. This is a general lesson for everybody in all things. Reality only really becomes a problem when you are set on denying it. And that's especially the case with things with human nature. And we are set on denying so much about human nature, and that's why everything is falling apart. And all of these things that should work basically fine don't work anymore. Because we're set on denying what is obviously true right in front of our face. And that is why I don't need to cancel male-female friendships because they don't really exist. Instead, I'm just going to cancel the people upset about Steve Harvey, especially because that was something from 10 years ago. Anyway, so let's keep, when we're looking for outrage, can we at least keep it within the last, I don't know, there should be a 30-day cutoff. Can we agree to that? Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.